You don't seduce a beautiful woman by making her feel beautiful. You seduce her by making her feel unique. A mentor told me that over 15 years ago, and at the time I didn't get it. But looking back on it, it was exactly what I needed to hear. Because I'd hit a frustrating plateau with women, one I think that most guys can understand. I could get attention and spark some interest, but I couldn't consistently get a woman to chase me. Sometimes I'd stumble onto something that seemed to almost flip a switch in her, where she'd suddenly start putting in way more effort, like texting me first, trying to impress me, etc., etc. But I had no idea what I did or why it worked or how to make it happen consistently, how to make it happen on purpose. For the longest time, I thought the answer was simply more attraction. If I could just make her want me enough, I thought that everything would fall into place. But I was dead wrong. Attraction gets a woman's attention, but the real game, the thing that makes a woman invest, is validation. That's because women don't chase attraction, they chase aspiration. And the second that you understand how to position yourself as the man she wants to see herself winning over, she won't just be interested, she'll need to win you over. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how this works. Hey, what's up? I am Rob Judge, and today's video is part 2 in my series on getting a woman to chase you. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, I'll put a link to it in the description, but don't worry, this video is a standalone technique, so you don't need any prior info. All right, so I want to begin with a quick thought experiment. Think of the last woman who kind of became obsessed with you. I'm talking, when she's texting you first, when she's trying to impress you, when she just can't seem to get enough of you, that kind of obsessed. So you got that girl in mind? Now here is the million-dollar question. What triggered that obsession? If you said looks, that's wrong. If you said money, that's also wrong. If you said game, you're still wrong. The answer? You were able to tap into her ideal self. You might have done it without even realizing it, but you managed to show her a version of herself that she was desperate to become. And when you do that, she doesn't just want you, she needs you. Now, this is a powerful insight, a game-changing insight. Once I realized this, I weaved it into a technique that I dubbed the golden mirror, which is about recognizing a woman for the qualities that she wants to be recognized for. When done right, the golden mirror gratifies women in an intense and powerful way. So much so that it makes her crave your approval, and she starts chasing your validation. Now, this is a critical step in getting a woman to chase you because, like I said earlier, attraction alone will only get you so far. Now, this is something that 99% of men don't understand because most guys think attraction is everything, that all their problems with women can be fixed with more attraction. But that's simply not the case. And here's why that's completely wrong. When you attract a woman, you affect how she feels about you. Now that's a good start, but all attraction really does is it puts you on her radar. To really get a girl, to get her to chase you, you have to affect how she feels about herself. Now I want you to remember that. Attraction depends on how a girl feels about you, but the secret to getting her obsessed, getting her to chase, is how you get her to feel about herself. And you do that with validation. Now, it's funny, I was reminded of this just the other day. I was at the gym and I noticed this couple working out together. Now, this girl was an absolute smoke show, but the guy, he was nothing special, about as tall as me, mediocre build, basically about a 7 across the board. Yet he had this gorgeous woman following him around, hanging on his every word, basically eating out of the palm of his hand. Now, he obviously didn't land this girl because of his looks or his height or anything physical. Now, I'll bet it wasn't even because he was the smartest guy or the funniest guy or the most interesting guy in the room. I guarantee you what this guy did was validate her in a way that made her feel like she was smart or funny or interesting. What brought them together and what keeps them together has more to do with what he brings out of her rather than simply any impression that he made on her. Now, I know this for 2 reasons. First, and most important, because I've seen it myself, both in my own personal life as well as more than 10 years of coaching clients, but also because of a psychological concept that most people have never even heard of. The psychology behind why this works. So back in the 1900s, a sociologist named Charles William Cooley, and that's a killer name by the way, pioneered the concept of the looking glass self. The gist of it is that we don't see ourselves directly. We see ourselves reflected through the eyes of others. Ever notice how you act differently around different people? That's because we unconsciously adapt to the image people project back at us. So when a woman is with a guy who makes her feel sexy, she leans into that. When she's with a guy who makes her feel adventurous, she leans into that. And when she's with a guy who makes her feel unique and recognized, she can't help but to chase him. That's because you make her feel more like who she wants to be. And that's a feeling 10 times more addictive than attraction alone. Game. Spot the hidden clue. So some of you guys may know Calvin, who is one of our coaches. But before Calvin was ever a coach, he was a student. And when we first started working together, there was this one girl in particular, we'll call her Isabella, that Calvin was focused on. He'd gone on a few dates with her, but suddenly she pulled back a little bit. She started going cold. So when I asked Calvin to describe what happened the last time they hung out, I got an avalanche of information. If any of you guys know Calvin is one of these guys who remembers everything. So he recounted a lot of information. So much of it that I was actually a bit overwhelmed. But I listened closely, and as he spoke, he eventually mentioned something that rang alarm bells in my head. In fact, let's make this into a game, right? I'm going to repeat a few of the things that Calvin said, and I want to see if you can catch the clue that I latched onto. Now, imagine Calvin telling me, she's an Aquarius, she's an only child, she's very close with her parents, her two favorite movies are Toy Story and Cinderella, her favorite animal is a snake, her favorite color is pink, she studies art in college, she drives a Ford Focus. Now, if you heard a hodgepodge of information like that, what do you think, if you're sitting in my shoes, what do you think I keyed in on? You give up? Now, this might surprise you, but it was actually when he said her favorite animal was a snake. Now, I'd understand if you missed it, since this is a very subtle and, on its face, seemingly insignificant detail. But I've been doing this for a long time, and over the years, I've found the best clues about a woman's golden mirror are hidden in the mundane information, the details that are easy to overlook. But when you consider those details in context, they stand out as inconsistent. Think about it. Imagine this girl, right? You have this girl, Isabella. Very feminine girl. She's in her early 20s. Her favorite color, her favorite movies, the fact she majors in art, even that she drives an electric vehicle. These are all details that are consistent with that profile. What's not consistent is a girl like that saying that a snake is her favorite animal. Yet this was information that she volunteered, information that she wanted Calvin to know. That's why he was repeating it to me, right? Now, why would she do that? Why would she want Calvin to know this? So I asked Calvin to consider this, and after we brainstormed it together for a few minutes, we concluded that it was because she saw herself as a rebel, a girl with a little bit of the, that Byronic dark side. It was part of her identity. She saw herself as a bit of an outsider. Now, this could actually even explain why she might go cold sometimes. It wasn't that she was disinterested. It wasn't necessarily that she was disinterested. It was sort of her way of asserting her independence. Often a simple clue like this can be the Rosetta Stone that decodes a woman's entire personality, her entire golden mirror. So with this insight, Calvin changed his approach, and he realized that Isabella, or at least he interpreted Isabella pulling away, it wasn't because of a lack of interest. Instead, he started looking at this like, oh, this is an opportunity to validate her golden mirror. So as soon as we ended the session, Calvin sent her this playful text about how she's like this sexy female version of Lord Byron the poet. And sure enough, that got a very enthusiastic response. And then from there, Calvin was able to get things back on track with her. And he actually ended up dating this girl for a long time. He ended up in a relationship with her. And while I can't take all the credit for that, I will definitely take some of the credit for that. But it wasn't me per se. It was that I helped Calvin understand the concept of the golden mirror. Application, the 3 stages. Now, Let me show you how to actually use this in real life. We'll break it into 3 simple steps. So first, you have the inductive phase. You need to become what I like to call an inductive listener. That means listening closely, reading between the lines a bit, and being on the lookout for inconsistencies, since they're usually the biggest clues. Now, you might have seen in other videos on this channel that I've mentioned this porn star that I dated who she wanted to be recognized as well-read and as cultured. Or you may have heard me mention my wife and how on our first date, she told me that she worked for Univision as a weather anchor. Now, my first thought was, oh, weather girl on Spanish TV. It's like a typical hot girl job. And it would have been tempting to assume that her golden mirror was something to do with looks, something about fashion or fitness or beauty. But since I was listening inductively, my ears perked up when she casually mentioned how she was really into theater in college. And I remember her saying, I see doing the weather as an extension of the arts. And it was like, boom. That put her identity into sharp focus. I knew that she saw herself as creative, as an artist. And when I reflected that back to her, it landed. And it still lands to this day. To do this right, you need to consider everything, not just what a woman says, but consider her friends, her hobbies, and even what she posts on social media. These are all reflections of how she sees herself or how she wants the world to see her. But when I say consider this, right, I mean really consider this. And a lot of that means going beyond the obvious surface level stuff. For example, if a woman posts a lot of travel pictures, right, it's not simply that she wants to be seen as a traveler. That's way too obvious. Her golden mirror probably has more to do with something like she has a sense of adventure, or she wants to show off status, or even that she wants to be seen as being worldly and cultured. Or it could even mean that she's very independent, that she doesn't like staying in one place at once. But you have to go a level deeper to see what that connection is. 2, the mirror phrase. Once you spot one of these clues, don't directly comment on it. Instead, you want to create a situation where she can express that side of herself. So if she hints at being adventurous, don't say, oh, you seem very adventurous. Instead, share a story about spontaneity and watch how she responds. Think of it like this. You're trying to join the conversation that she's already having in her own head. Whatever a woman thinks is important, essentially what she sees as part of her identity, that's what's constantly on her mind. That's the conversation going on in her head. So when you recognize and align yourself with that, you trigger something powerful. You trigger a craving to earn your approval. That's when she starts trying to prove herself to you. And here's the kicker. She won't even realize why. You start activating an emotional response that makes her need your validation in a way that she doesn't normally feel around just about every other guy. 3, the validation phase. The third phase is where most guys mess up. They try to validate a woman too quickly, or they do it too directly. Instead, you want to validate through curiosity and assumptions. Instead of saying, oh, you're so creative, ask her opinion on something creative or a piece of art, or ask her to get some feedback on something that's creative. Let her show you that side of herself. Win-win. So probably my favorite thing about the golden mirror technique is that it's totally win-win here. You're not tricking her, you're actually encouraging her to be basically her best self. And in turn, you're gonna build a connection that's deeper than surface level chemistry. It's why I love teaching this. It's not a trick, it's a tool. And it works whether you're meeting someone new, a new woman that you met maybe on Tinder or you met out at the bar, or it's to keep that spark alive with a long-term partner. Like I said earlier, I still use this technique with my wife and it still lands just as effectively as it did when we went on our first date. Now, it really all comes back to that piece of advice that I heard way back then, right? You don't seduce a beautiful woman by making her feel beautiful. You seduce her by making her feel unique. For a woman to truly want a man, it's not just about him. It's about how she feels about herself when she's with him. If you master that, you will never have to chase a woman ever again because they'll be chasing you. Caveat. All right, but one final caveat here. Now, this technique depends on your ability to cut through the BS and validate a woman in a unique and insightful way. Funny as this may sound, a lot of guys are incapable of doing this because they're actually trapped in a nice guy mindset. Now, this is like a real sneaky problem because you would think a nice guy mistake would be validating a woman too much, but it's not. The problem with nice guys or guys who are stuck in the nice guy mindset is that their validation is predictable and obvious. They say the sorts of things that a woman has already heard a million times before. So it comes off sounding cheap and it makes them seem low value. A lot of guys make this mistake often without even realizing it. So that's why Bobby Rio and I, we created this free assessment quiz, which you can find at girlsquiz.com. And I'm going to put a link to it down here in the description. Now, this quiz diagnoses sneaky nice guy mistakes that you might be making with women. And it's completely free. It takes less than 5 minutes to complete. So I recommend any guy watching to take that quiz right now. This way, you'll know if there are mistakes that you're making with women that you're not even aware of. Again, you can find it by going to girlsquiz.com or just go ahead and click on the link in the description. All right, so that's all the time we have for this week, but do not worry, I will be back in less than a week, picking up right where we left off. So if you haven't subscribed to the channel, there is no better time to do so than right now. That way, you will be the first to know when that video drops. Also, make sure to follow me on social media, and do me a favor, give this video a like, leave me a comment, really helps out the channel, really helps out me personally, and I will see you guys next week. Peace.